right, now to a pretty familiar story that's playing out in neighborhoods across Chicago. People have been on edge after reports of ICE patrols and raids, even some happening near places of worship. Mosques, temples, and churches are all feeling the ripple effects of heightened immigration enforcement being carried out by federal agents. So, how are faith leaders responding? What are they hearing from their congregants, many of whom are scared, confused, or angry? And how can clergy step up and guide their communities through this tense moment? In this next conversation, we're talking with a panel of Chicago faith leaders about what they're seeing, what's being said in the pews, and how they're helping people find calm and courage. At the table, Imam Tariq El-Amin, Imam at Masjid Al-Taqwa in Calumet Heights, and Rabbi Max Antman of Temple Shalom in Lakeview. Reverend Ciera Bates Chamberlain, Executive Director of Live Free Illinois, joins us remotely. Welcome to you all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, we've been seeing these ICE patrols across Chicago and the suburbs as far out as Aurora, right? The pictures are hard to ignore of just how this has turned out. But what have you been seeing and hearing just in and around your own communities? I'll start with you, Rabbi.
Yeah, folks in our community are very scared either because they are directly impacted or because their classmates or their neighbors or their coworkers are fearful about going to work or going to school or going to class. And people are extremely uneasy in our community right now.
Imam?
There's a mixture of anger, fear, and I guess confusion. There's a confusion like, when will we get this right? All right, so I would say one of the first things that I saw, what came to mind for me was the slave patrols. And while slavery was a legal institution, it was absolutely abhorrent. It was immoral. It denied the human dignity of a section of folks that we said didn't deserve it. And some people will try to make this into an issue of legality. Well, if you're not here legally, then that's your fault. But this is a time for humanity. It is a time for us to recognize that legal is not always moral.
So when these are at odds, that must be a hard place for a faith leader to stand. Or is it?
No, actually, it's a very easy place for us to stand because we're always on the side of humanity. We're always on the side of what is moral. And our nation has a long history of being on the wrong side of morality. And we've been working to reconcile that, to get better, as we move along. But this is a moment where we seem to be taking a step backward.
Reverend Bates Chamberlain, as a faith leader, what goes through your mind when you hear someone from your community has been taken or is at risk of being taken by ICE?
What goes through my mind is a few things. I think a lot of the other faith leaders have named the fear, the confusion, the concern that we have for people. And for me, it bubbles up a lot of righteous anger. Just to think that we've come to this point in America to where we can demonize, humiliate, criminalize people depending on which political power is in office. So there is a ton of righteous anger that bubbles up because it's not only the people that can be taken, it is the people whose everyday lives are disrupted. It is the individuals who are Black, brown, citizens, non-citizens. This has impacted us all. And so we are outraged, and we definitely have the right to be outraged and should be.
Rabbi, tell me more about some of the specific questions and concerns that you're hearing.
People don't know what to do. And in a moment of confusion, people often turn to their faith leaders and say, where can I donate? What can I do? What actions can I take? And we're working really hard to gather resources for folks of ways they can provide legal services or accompany people who are afraid to leave their homes, buy groceries, et cetera. But I think for the most part, people are just looking for reassurance that their faith communities are showing up in the ways that they know they should be. And for us, at least in our community, it feels imperative to remind folks that many Jews in this country are only 1 to 3 generations away from an immigrant story. The most repeated commandment in the Torah is to welcome the stranger. And what's happening in our country right now is happening not to people who are strangers. They're our neighbors, they're our classmates, they're our coworkers. And they deserve not only to be welcomed, but to be protected. And our congregants, I believe, are looking for us to say that and say it explicitly.
Have you felt like you've had the answers for them? Like, what do you say?
I mean, I don't know if there are answers per se right now, but there are things that we can do. And we're working hard to make sure people have access to the tools and resources they need to take action to protect the folks in their lives that they care about.
Imam Tariq, how do you strike a balance between preaching compassion for your neighbors and immigration laws?
That's a great question. And I don't know if it's necessarily a balance that we're looking to strike. It is to have a holistic expression of compassion while also recognizing that we all have different paths that have brought us to this space. But I would also want to lift up in terms of how we address or how do we provide, how can you support those in this particular time? And I want to lift up the work of there's Ciera Chicago, Council of American Islamic Relations Chicago. There's also ICER. There's the Legal Defense Fund. And they have really been at the forefront of making sure that there's a response to families being separated.
And it's a rapid response effort, right? We talked to some of those folks last week on the program. They're showing up sometimes 10, 15 minutes after a raid or after an arrest to help connect families and help answer some questions, whatever they can. In that moment. Reverend, as we talk about the fear that and the uncertainty that this moment has created, how do you go about educating your congregants about their rights without creating a sense of panic?
So at Live Free, we work with over 130 congregations across the state. So not just my particular congregation, but working with congregations across the city and across the Chicagoland on this particular issue. I think we have really worked to give people, educate them on the broader issues. And so while we're educating and partnering with folks on making sure that people know their rights, making sure that individuals know what resources are around them, we are also making sure that people understand the broader agenda of what's happening so that instead of moving into a place of panic, that we move into a place of power and we're able to organize and resist. So it's not necessarily, for me, about trying to shield, but trying to equip so that we can resist and fight back, because I will continue to say we know that this is not just about immigration or violence. We know that this is about a bigger agenda that this administration is trying to put in place, so our people need to be prepared to organize.
It's almost designed so that the fear part is almost inevitable, right? The way that this has all been set up. The Trump administration's position here is that this crackdown on immigration really is a crackdown on crime. So sticking with you for another moment here, Reverend Bates Chamberlain, a lot of the organizing that you do is around creating safe neighborhoods. So I wonder how you would prefer the administration approach the issue.
So one, we absolutely do not need federal agents with masks running around our communities because at this point, that actually creates a sense of fear and unsafety when you have people driving around in vehicles with masks, kidnapping people, disappearing folks, and you don't know if it's an ICE agent, a federal agent, a vigilante, or some creep just picking someone off the street. So what I would like to see is an investment, a continued investment in the infrastructure that has already been built and that was working. We've already quoted a lot of the statistics that show that violence has been reduced, but that is coming because faith leaders are out engaging in violence reduction work. CBI workers are out intervening in gun violence. There's an investment, a significant investment in victim services, trauma, mental health. All of those things matter. There's another thing that the federal government can do, which is address the amount of illegal guns flowing through the streets. So there's a number of things that they can make an investment in before they go to the extreme in bringing in federal agents.
Same question to you, Rabbi and Imam. I mean, the feds want to crack down on crime in Chicago. How do you suggest they do it instead? You first, Rabbi.
I suggest they trust the leaders in this city who have been addressing crime for decades and who have seen a decrease in crime in just the last few years. And I would hope that as immigration continues to be at the center of our conversation, that we work to address it in a way that provides people with dignity and humanity and not continue this hostile, violent, fearful way of addressing immigration in our city, which is not dignified or humane or done with any sort of love at the center.
Imam Tariq?
If we're not willing to address the root causes of crime, of dysfunction, and we are only talking about their existence, then they continue to persist. So I agree with the previous statements. And I would say that investments in education, investments in social services, investments in housing, in our infrastructure. We know this administration, I believe they just put a stop to, I believe it was about a $2 billion investment that was supposed to be an expansion, a part of our infrastructure here. These are the things that quell the opportunities for violence. And as it relates to immigration, it's extremely important for us with regard to our education and how we're sensitized for us to be able to see our common humanity. And when we lose that, when we are only able to reference one another in terms of our political leanings, our ethnic heritage, then we lose the possibility of actually becoming the union that we ideally tell ourselves that we are.
Hey, if you just got here, welcome. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons, and this is In the Loop, your space for context, community, and conversation every weekday morning at 9 a.m. right here on WBEZ. And right now we're talking about how faith leaders are helping their communities as ICE arrests and detainments continue across the city of Chicago. Our guests are Reverend Ciera Bates Chamberlain, who's executive director of Live Free Illinois, Imam Tariq El-Amin, who's imam at Masjid Al-Taqwa in Calumet Heights, and Rabbi Max Antman of Temple Shalom in Lakeview. So, Imam, sticking with you, as we've seen, faith leaders, they're not just giving words, they're following with action. We're often seeing folks go to immigration court with Chicagoans to attempt to protect them from these ICE agents. Is that the right move, you think?
Absolutely. I believe that, and it is for each individual to determine what their capacity is for involvement. I received a text last week when ICE agents, they abducted, I believe, 3 minors over on 105th and Avenue N. When I got there, they were no longer there, but the people were still there. The community was there. There was media there. And I know this is happening over and over. Whenever they pull up and they take people, we have faith leaders, community members who are coming to assist, to help to de-escalate, to be with the community. So if it's showing up in those spaces, or if it's showing up at court, if it's forming a wall at a school, whatever it is, putting your body in front of those who are being victimized, those who don't have the voice to speak for themselves, then that's what we do. And I believe that it's for each person to figure out, what that is. Yeah.
Reverend Bates Chamberlain, do you agree?
I absolutely agree. Some of what we've been doing in addition to our Know Your Rights education is also ensuring that clergy know how to respond on the ground to the scenes. There are so many things that we can do as the faith community, but I think the two first and foremost things that we can do is, one, use our platform to continue to speak out and share the injustices, because what we're learning that the national media is not covering the stories as much as we need to cover it. So it is our obligation to show the injustices that are happening to our brothers and sisters on the ground. But the next thing is that we have been showing up to the scenes, whether it be to offer resources and support, and to ensure that we can help to just provide a presence to the crowds, because there are a lot of as we know that it should be, a lot of people have a lot of emotions. And so it does help when the faith leaders are out on the ground trying to support those who are out protesting and who are trying to lift up that righteous anger that they have. So our presence is so important in this moment.
I want to rewind the clock just a little bit, Rabbi. At the beginning of the year, right after coming into office, President Trump scrapped a policy that protected spaces like churches, from immigration raids. I mean, did any of that change things for your space and how you operate?
It certainly changed the way that we kind of think about safety in our spaces for folks. And we're working in coalition, as many faith communities are, to try and encourage legislators in Springfield to pass legislation that curbs ICE's ability to enter places of worship, hospitals, schools, et cetera.
Okay.
But we train our security team to know how to respond if ICE shows up. We have spaces in our community that we consider safe spaces that would be private.
So you are talking about coming up with a plan or some kind of response if your place of worship is raided.
For sure. And especially in a climate where, regardless of what the legislation says, we have ICE entering private residences and private organizations and detaining people, we have to be prepared for things like that.
Imam, are you having those conversations, making a plan or some sort of response?
Well,
I mean, if they raid your mosque, what next?
Well, the reality of it is this. If ICE agents show up at the mosque, they're armed, they're doing their shock and awe, then we're not about to have armed resistance, right? We have to basically deal with that as, I don't want to say an inevitability, but certainly as a possibility. And then it becomes the safety of our congregants, of the community. We want to ensure that. We want to ensure that that righteous anger does not turn into it does not escalate. So really, in those situations, we want to respond with a sense of de-escalation for ourselves, right? Not responding in a way that puts further life at risk in that moment, because what we have to think about is the moment after this, right? So we do want to be mindful of, of security. We have a security presence.
Yes.
But in terms of once they've passed the threshold, it becomes, okay, let's think about the moment that comes after this.
You brought up that discussion on legality versus morality earlier, Imam Tariq, and I remember you recently talked about that. You also you had advice for people who have taken oaths of service, folks who have to follow orders.
Yes.
I would love for you to repeat that advice. You talked about weaponizing incompetence.
Well, I want to start by saying I always love to give credit to, if I got something, I give credit to where I got it from. I believe the brother's name is Overlord. I saw him on Instagram. He's a former service member.
Okay.
And he said, for those who have taken the oath of service, and you have to follow orders, you have to show up, you have to go where you've been assigned to go. He says, weaponize incompetence. Weaponize incompetence. So for those who may not understand what that means you show up, but that's all you do. Your body is there. You're not moving as directed. You're doing everything that you can. I think a great example of this, you remember when the military parade for that, coordinated with Trump's birthday.
Yes.
That was the worst ragtag group of marching that I've ever seen. If you go back and look at it, you see so many folks who are marching out of step. And that
I just remember how it wasn't very well attended.
That too. It wasn't. But that was a prime example of weaponizing incompetence. That was a protest. They don't have the ability to just outright say, I'm tired of this.
We don't want to do this.
Exactly. But weaponize incompetence for those who have to show up. Yeah, show up late.
I hear you. Last advice, Rabbi, for those listening to us, the public even.
This is the time to show up. I was at the No Kings rally, and I saw someone carrying their oxygen with a sign that said "No Kings in this country." And I think in whatever way we have access to, whatever tools are at our disposal, this is not a time to stay silent on the injustices that we're seeing in our country and in our city of Chicago. If people have the ability to speak up, to act out, to act in solidarity, to work in coalition, to provide safety and de-escalation and all of the things that folks who are in fear right now need, this is the time. So I would encourage folks to, in any way they can, go to their local faith community, go to any of the organizations that we've talked about on this episode, and get involved in this fight.
And before we wrap, Reverend Bates Chamberlain, in the next segment today, we're going to be talking about the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who's a fellow faith leader and civil rights activist. Your thoughts, and anything that you take away from his example while you're processing this moment and how to move forward with intention?
Sure. One of my favorite speeches of Reverend Jesse Jackson is when he preached about the rocks laying around. And he encouraged us and it was really talking about like how many voters that are laying around and that we can engage. And so whether we are talking about voters or we're talking about people in the community that we can activate and politicize, I would say that this is the moment that we let folks know that we cannot be divided. Whether we're being impacted by immigration, Black and brown people being impacted by immigration, whether it's being impacted by the policies from healthcare cuts, SNAP housing, all of the things that impact us, we have to go out and get our people and bring them with us. There are so many rocks laying around. And like he said, David picked up the rocks and defeated the Goliath. And so that is what I would leave with that. And that's what Reverend Jackson taught us.
That's Reverend Ciera Bates Chamberlain, Executive Director of Live Free Illinois, Imam Tariq El-Amin, who's Imam at Masjid Al-Taqwa in Calumet Heights, and Rabbi Max Antman of Temple Shalom in Lakeview. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sasha.